Good afternoon, folks, and welcome. Gonna give it another minute or two to let folks come in, and we'll get started. Okay. We'll get started. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and we do have a packed session today. And do not worry, this is being recorded, and we will have this available on the Passaic County Economic Development website after the session is over. So just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Giancarlo Di Leonardo. I'm here with Curly Reyes from our team here at the county. We're excited to welcome businesses and friends to our Passaic County Ready, Set, Go Global webinar with our partners at the New Jersey Business Action Center. This is an opportunity to learn about how you can expand your market share, start thinking about exporting overseas. Maybe some of the folks on the call are seasoned pros and you've done this before, and other folks are just starting to get into this. With the world changing the way that it is, it's never harmful to learn about what else is out there. And we have two experts here on the call today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Bill Spear from the New Jersey Business Action Center. Thanks, Bill.
Giancarlo, thank you so much. I do appreciate the introduction, B, the opportunity to share this presentation. Today I'm joined with Sophie Werner. On the screen are Giancarlo and Curly's contact details. But before we get started, I wanted to bring Sophie in. Sophie's got a bit of a survey to kick everything off. And Sophie, if I could trouble you to join us at the moment.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Giancarlo, for the opportunity. We're really excited to get to speak to the Passaic County business community today. I just launched the welcome survey. It is a brief survey asking about your specific type of business. So we're looking at the industry, and then we're also asking about whether you have exported in the past, as in sold a product or service outside of the United States and its territories, and whether you're actively marketing your company internationally. So it looks like we've got about 50% of attendees have their votes in already. Looks like we have some service-based companies, some companies selected other. If you would like to add any additional information in the chat to the specifics of your business, what kind of service you provide, or what industry, please feel free to send that to us in the chat. You should have that feature to chat with the panelists. And in addition, during this presentation, please feel free to add questions, queue up questions. We will answer as many as we can in real time, and we'll also have time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A. And it does look like we do have a mixed crowd today. We have an attendee that is actively marketing the company internationally. Majority are not at this time. Majority have not exported. But this is really great to know who we're talking to so we can continue to cater our examples to our audience. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to William Spear, manager of the Office of Export Promotion, for remarks regarding the Business Action Center.
Sophie, thank you so much. And we're just going to go forward one slide. And Sophie, is that okay if I end the poll on this side?
Yes, sorry about that.
Got it. All right, so going forward one slide, the Business Action Center is embedded inside the Department of State. Lieutenant Governor / Secretary of State Way is the head of that agency. Coming down a layer or two is Melanie Willoughby, the Executive Director of the Business Action Center. Several units there. We're going to speak to those in a moment. But the Business Action Center has intentionally and purposefully put itself in the midst of the state's economy to not just deliver the quality experience, that is Sophie Werner, our colleagues, Jean Chang, Marielle Wolf, myself, William Spear, but the Office of Business Advocacy, Office of Small Business Advocacy. And it's our collective experience plus our knowledge of where there is other information inside of the state. And that is where we position ourselves. If we can answer that question, if we can provide a solution, we do that. If not, we make the introduction to an appropriate agency. That could be county, that could be back up with Giancarlo and Curly, that could be at the state level, it could be at the federal level. That might be a little problematic right now, but there are areas still functioning. That could be at the international level as well. So that is our role, to make those, and you're going to hear this word a bit in the upcoming slides, to make those connections. And we see ourselves, as we do this, to be in the midst of an economy whose vibrancy, really probably exceeds what most people might think about the state. Sophie and I and our colleagues elsewhere in the back, we get to see the entire state and its economy. So we get to have those moments in which there are industries and different companies in different counties. But there is a phenomenal economy that our office and the back tries to push forward and to move forward and support as it grows and bring resources to help it grow intentionally as well. And also, Giancarlo did touch upon this. The slides that we're going through today are going to be available for or after the presentation. So you're going to see a fair amount of material on the screen and a little bit more of an excerpted talk to each of the slides. So please don't worry, you're going to get all of these slides as a follow-up. And again, you heard me say connections, connect here, communicate and collaborate. You see the back, you see the Department of State right in the midst of that. And that's another way of presenting our mission and our vision. And this is our team. This is the back that was taken a couple years back, no pun intended. These are the colleagues that we get to work with on a daily and a weekly basis, who are in their particular areas also helping the state and its companies and the economies and the counties and the economy to move forward. And again, about the back, this is more of our operational protocols. That word on that top line, free, my colleague Don Newman has a little bit of contention towards that word. Nothing anywhere is ever free, but the services that we provide are those services that have been paid by state tax dollars elsewhere. And so, as Don Newman would like to say, avail yourself of these services. These have already been paid for, and to engage is to make full use of what your tax dollars or other types of payments are making available to you. Because if you don't, you can just about bet that companies next to you are already taking advantage of these. So these are many of the areas inside of the office, inside of the back. The one highlighted there is the Office of Export Promotion. We help companies expand into other areas around the world. However, on more on the domestic side, those other units have equally weighted value. And towards the bottom there, that Cannabis Trading Academy, Sophie, I had the pleasure of hearing Sophie describe this recently, and this is really the newest member of the Business Action Center. And if you go back a couple of years, there was state legislation that changed the status of cannabis, and the training academy is functionally a business development enterprise to help those individuals that are looking at cannabis as a way to build a business, create jobs, create revenues, et cetera. And so they're part of the Business Action Center as well. And again, all of this gets us to this position where I can stand up next to Sophie, and if our colleagues were here as well, that bar right there in the middle, the back provides solutions. We, from our own experience, talk specifically to questions. We share our experience of our colleagues. We introduce to other entities, agencies, etc. However the moment happens, the BAC provides solutions. And this is how you can reach out to us, 1-800-JERSEY-7. If you forget me, if you forget Sophie, anything at all, 1-800-JERSEY-7 is going to get you to my colleagues and Sophie's colleagues who are 20 feet from where we're sitting right now in Trenton, and simply ask them to transfer the call over to the Office of Export Promotion. But that number, 1-800-JERSEY-7, is a phenomenal number to keep in mind. The chat, business.nj.gov, is staffed by the same folks. They are providing their expertise, their knowledge, their insights on an online setting. And then there's more to be learned by that URL at the bottom, state.nj.us/state/BAC. And that brings us all to the Office of Export Promotion. The roles of the office are pretty straightforward. We advise small and mid-sized companies on how to go about either entering markets for the first time, or if they're already exporting, we help them to grow that book of business, whether it's growing it within a single country, a country they're already in, or if they're taking that experience to go into other countries as well. But that's our role. We help companies sell their goods and services, and Sophie will be making the point too, as part of her presentation. Services can be exported. To sell your goods, sell your services around the world with the express intent of creating jobs here in New Jersey. That's very important. The two go together for us. Our toolkit of choice is selling around the world to create jobs. Our colleagues elsewhere do other things, selling domestically to help company jobs created here. Advocacy, this is no matter what planning you do, at some point, there's going to be a shipment that's stuck in a port somewhere. And at that point, that's when we become maybe one of your best friends. We help companies to overcome the friction that sometimes exists, or the snag that sometimes exists in the realm of international trade. And those snags can be at a state level, they can be at a federal level, they can be at an international level, an international government level, etc. It does not really matter. That advocacy label there is basically to overcome barriers in the realm of international trade. That bottom item, the foreign trade zone grantee, our colleague Jean Chang, who's part of the Office of Export Promotion, manages the foreign trade zone. And the foreign trade zone has a very, very specialized function. What it does, it helps company bring product into this country, perform or conduct a value add on it, and then to export that back out. And the value of that is that when a product comes into the foreign trade zone, technically it's not in the United States. So as such, it's not under the jurisdiction of any tariffs, any fees, or anything like that. So it's literally almost abeyance. But in that abeyance, companies can perform value add. And the intent is of a couple things: to maybe sometimes to reduce any tariffs or fees, to certainly delay the fees, or even to eliminate the fees altogether, depending on how the value add item is viewed in the realm of tariffs. Those are the three things that we do here in this office, and all of those, again, with the intent of growing jobs here in the state. And then bringing us up to this, and this is today's presentation, Passaic County, Ready, Set, Go Global. And joining us back into the program, Sophie Werner, take it away.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome to those that have joined us during the introduction. If you missed our original announcement, please be advised that this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available to all attendees and registrants, as well as the slide deck from today's presentation. Today's webinar is focused on new and expanding exporters, and as such, we will have resources for both new and expanding companies that are looking to grow or start to grow in international markets. Next slide, please. We're going to give you a couple reasons why exporting is a strong business strategy to grow your sales over time. Giancarlo mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation that you can tap into additional market share. Looking at the actual number of consumers outside of the United States and its territories, we're actually looking at 95% of consumers that are outside of the US. And more importantly, 2/3 of the buying power is outside of the United States. So making sure that you are tapping in to those additional markets when you're looking to grow your business should be part of your growth plan. In addition, exporting can help smooth your business cycles during domestic lulls and offset domestic business cycle and handle any market fluctuations, as well as increase your business's valuation and ensure that you are using your full capacity of all of the systems that you have invested in, such as your production, your sales team, and then all the administrative systems that you have established for the business. So in short, if you're not looking to international markets to grow your business, you're missing out on a big opportunity, and that's only on the, economic data, looking at the sheer number of consumers and the buying power, but also you can become more competitive domestically by exporting and having more experience in international markets so that you can better defend the domestic market and better understand the global economy. Next slide, please. During today's presentation, we will discuss the importance of conducting a self-assessment of your business, the importance of management commitment to exporting as a first step. Then we will discuss what's on everyone's mind, trade barriers, but also trade opportunities. We're going to discuss both. And then we'll jump into export planning and walk through market research tools that you can use today in order to find data relevant to your company. Then we'll wrap up with a manufacturing case study. We have created this fictitious business entity for the purposes of this presentation, Great Falls Fabricators, and we'll be walking through a demo using some of the tools that we'll be connecting you all with. And then finally, we'll have time for questions and discuss follow-up. Next slide, please. As mentioned, everyone will receive a follow-up email with this presentation, with the presentation slides, as well as the recording. But in addition, upon the completion of this presentation, all attendees will receive a link to an export readiness self-assessment. There's going to be multiple options for the export readiness self-assessment. We will have one for completely new to export companies, and we will have one for expanding companies or reactive exporters, as well as experienced exporters that are looking to proactively supercharge their export strategy. And our office welcomes a conversation with companies regarding all of these topics. You're going to see a lot of information today. We're not going to be able to dive deep into all of the topics, but we do invite you to reach out for an additional follow-up conversation. This is what we do, and we're happy to support you on a specific area of interest. And for management commitment, I'm going to pass it back to my manager, William Spear, to discuss both management commitment and trade barriers and trade opportunities.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And I'm trying to get my video back on. Bear with me for one moment. Well, I'm not sure, but I think I've just stepped on top of the presentation. Sorry about that. Hold on.
You're on,
Okay.
Bill.
Okay. Thank you so much. As Sophie said, she's passed it back to me for the management commitment. And this seems to be like almost a given. Management would be, committed to going down this path. But it plays a little bit more of of a nuanced role as well as a role in absolute support. And that sounds a little bit contradictory, and perhaps it is on the outside. But to take on the endeavor of exporting, particularly for companies that are new to exporting, there are some things that are going to happen even before you spend any money, and Sophie's going to dive into that. But to begin to understand how your product, your good, or your service looks like, not so much how the company has sold it or marketed it for however many years the company's been involved, but how how the rest of the world looks at it. And that becomes really critical. And so going through that path and going through that learning curve is a lot of times going to require management to simply say or acknowledge, we are going to go through this path because we're going to graft this on to the engine of our company so that it becomes one more core, as is written here, a core sales strategy. That simply does not happen overnight. And it's not necessarily an expensive process, but it's an intellectual process. If your company has, for 2 decades, been selling to the 21 counties of the state of New Jersey up and down the East Coast, maybe a couple states inward, going from the East Coast on into the center part of the country, to begin to say, well, what might it be like to sell in France or in Guatemala or Nigeria? All of these things require a commitment to doing this, and hence the slide, management commitment, but then also B, an open mindset that the manner in which business is conducted in these other markets may in fact be, and probably is, radically different from how your firm or you have conducted business here in the past. And sometimes it takes some twists, sometimes it extends itself, but that commitment from the very top parts of the company is going to it's going to set the tone for the company to continue to go down this path. And again, I want to make the point, it's not necessarily an expensive path. We're talking right now just about acclimation to other markets. And a lot of that is learning, a lot of that is putting yourself in situations where, you may have an opportunity to learn what it means to do business in Japan. You may have an opportunity to be around businesses from Thailand, as the case may be. And that simply takes time. And it takes time in general, but also, and this is a phrase that this office uses all the time, is that the goal for this presentation and subsequent follow-ups is to put companies in a position to be long-term, sustainably successful exporters. Anybody probably can make a one-off sale, and certainly enough companies do that. But to put in place and institutionalize the processes that are needed really requires a more intentional approach. And that approach starts with the commitment of your management team. And so it's not just the management team, but they're also, as that second point says, everybody has to largely be aware of, talking about, and being committed to going down this path. So you have your C-level suite folks, and then you have maybe your HR, or you have your marketing folks, or you have your customer service. One of our favorite examples here is selling into a country, and on Thanksgiving morning, when you're about to start time with your family, you get a customer service call. Well, who's going to take that call? You're about to step out for, Thanksgiving, maybe watch a couple football games, have a meal. But generally, if there's a call that comes in from an overseas customer, the best way to ensure that that has an opportunity of continuing beyond that call is to address that call. And the question then becomes, who's going to take that on? And these are things to be talked about in advance of that, in advance of going forward. And then when you take it down one more level, you've got your top tier management, you've got your leadership team. Then you want to take it down one more level. And that is those folks that are closely aligned with the success of your company. a lot of times that's going to be a banker. A bank is the bank that you have right now. Are they comfortable with international trades, international transactions? Is your lawyer or is your legal group, are they comfortable with evaluating and drafting a contract that is going to be in fact between you and, let's say, a buyer in, where do we want to go today? Well, Sweden or something like that. So all of this starts with that simple phrase across the top of this slide, the management's commitment to exporting, because all of that is going to flow all the way down throughout the entire organization. And there are some areas in here that need also to be included in your suppliers. That's another key group. Are they going to be aligned? Are these individuals, are these companies aligned with your international intentions? So it's very, very easy to talk about it. But again, this is the prep work. I think Sophie said that as she was starting, the preamble, if you will, to intentionally pursuing international sales. This is a big part of that. And again, it's all sweat equity. You don't see a price tag on here. This is what companies need to do so that they are aligned with pursuing sales, and going through all the different processes to obtain those sales in other markets. And then on the trade barriers, one of the great topics of the year 2025, let's just go forward one more slide, is the tariffs that are in place around the world. And a tariff is many, many things, but it is an additional fee or an additional cost that is required typically for a product or a service to come into a country. There are rare examples of instances in which individual countries have tried to apply a fee for exporting to a country. If you go back to, I think it was the middle of April, maybe the very early part of May, there was a province in Canada that was looking to attach an additional fee for any power that came into the United States. And that's a rarity, though. That usually that doesn't happen like that. It's goods or services coming into a country, and they incur that tax. And so everybody has read about those. Everybody has seen those. You can't go too many days without hearing about that. What is also an impediment, or can be impediment, is the second point there, the non-tariff trade barriers. These are things that are almost hidden, but the moment you try to move a product or a service from the state of New Jersey into another country, maybe these happen right at the boundary between the two countries. Maybe they happen 15 kilometers in. A licensing fee, an inspection, additional paperwork required to prove whatever the receiving country wants to prove. Those are not tariffs, but they're very real obstacles and barriers to trade. And that's why you see that name, non-tariff trade barriers. And then underneath there, on the more positive side, are those trade agreements. And right now, a lot of those agreements that have been around for 15 and 20 years are being rethought for different reasons. But a trade agreement is when two or more countries band together and say, look, I acknowledge that we want your products coming in here into my country for hopefully a reduced tariff, if any tariff at all. And in exchange for that, we do not expect our companies to be impacted by tariffs for going into your country. And this is some more details. Again, this is one of those pages we were talking about a moment ago. Not all of these we're going to go into details. You'll get the presentation, but licensing requirements, those, if a country that you're trying to sell into has got a licensing requirement, and I'm going to use a word that is frequently used in trade circles, onerous. Everybody, particularly when we talk food, medical equipment, pharmaceutical, et cetera, cosmetics, all those things, every country on the planet has the obligation to protect its citizens from, to make sure that what's coming into the country is proper and healthy and not going to cause problems. Everybody, I think, understands that. But there are moments when licensing requirements move from being prudent to be obstructionist. And this is, again, this is a non-tariff trade barrier that people will encounter. And almost it's almost that difficult to prove, but you have to kind of be aware of that, as you are moving goods into a country. If you get to the sense, or if you begin to sense it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon paperwork, documents, etc., frequently this is a way countries will try to discourage foreign sellers from coming in. And that's a big deal. This is a non-tariff trade barrier. Um, and then on the flipping over to the tariff barriers, there's been a fair bit of conversation recently, a lot between this country and the EU, this country and the UK, this country and Canada, about um, select industries having a greatly reduced tariff rate for the first, say, $2 billion of a given industry that comes in. And this is another type of barrier. It's not all the time, not 100% of the time, but in essence, once that barrier is hit, or I'm sorry, once that quota is hit, then that tariff rate flexes up to what the standard rate is. And this is something else to be cognizant of. And then going forward, one more. This is some of the other types of trade agreements. Again, that bottom one, product specific agreements, that's kind of related to that previous slide previously, in which a specific product or a specific industry, a lot of times you'll hear it with autos, steel, um, food's a big deal. Everybody has a specific interest in food, but these items might receive specific or special treatment as opposed to like a general tariff rate. And all these things are to be, kept in mind as you go forward with this. And then as we go forward one more time, we're going to bring back in Sophie for the building your export plan. And Sophie, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Bill. As we go forward into the export plan discussion, I do want to remind everyone that all of this information, though we are trying to give you a lay of the land, a lay of the globe, it is in your best interest to hyper focus on 1 to 3 markets, maybe even one if you're just getting started, and try to think of everything through that lens of the market that you are looking to target. If you do not know which market to target, we will also discuss resources how you can identify prospective markets, but to really try to bring everything into more of a focus in terms of limiting, the number of markets that you're looking to go after. So, for your export plan, many of you, if not all, are very familiar with the process of business planning. Maybe you've been in business for decades and have had multiple reiterations of your business plan. Maybe you are a startup and have used your business plan as a tool to demonstrate to a loan officer that you are able to take on the small business loan. But regardless, your export plan, similar to your business plan, is a living, breathing document, and it should not be static, put on the shelf. It should not collect dust. This is something we want to update. And one of the key pieces for the export plan is making sure that all of the domestic focused aspects are focused on the specific market of interest. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, try to think through just a couple markets that you believe will be um, good prospects, and we can always go back to the drawing board. This is something that, we go through this process with our clients. We work with companies on the export plan, but to discover which markets may be a good fit, you need to look at what is the product or service you're looking to export. You probably will not be looking to export all of your products or all of your services. we're going to be going through a case study later regarding durable manufactured goods, so a product. And in order to do that, we are going to be looking at the commodity code of that product. And if you are a products-based business, you need to understand the language of trade when it comes to tracking your good, your commodity in the global marketplace. So there's going to be the Schedule B commodity code that we will look at later, that is administered through the US Census Bureau. So that's going to be really important for those that are product based. For your financial capacity, there may be different levels of appetite, as Bill mentioned, from your banks in lending for export focused initiatives. There, you know, you may need to expand operations domestically, manufacturing facilities in order to meet the increased demand that you are experiencing from your expansion into additional markets. But in general, there are many different programs through the U.S. Small Business Administration to help new to export and expanding exporters, U.S. exporters, to tap into global markets, and they do this by supporting lenders that are, typically your commercial bank or a community development financial institution, and they guarantee these export specific loans up to 90% in order to incentivize the business, incentivize the bank, incentivize the loan officer to be able to extend that tool, that loan to the company in order to expand their physical operations, in order to grow and increase their capacity to sell internationally. And when we also look at financial capacity, thinking about terms and payment, are you going to be extending payment terms to your customers? Is that customary in the industry? Looking at your ability to take on any of those credits. We also work closely with the XM Bank of the United States, which is the official export credit agency of the United States, and they can help protect against buyer insolvency, buyer non-payment, and there's a lot of different tools in the financial space. I'm just going to highlight a couple more pieces on the screen before I move on. I do want to highlight pricing considerations. We're going to mostly be thinking about landed costs for your product. So your landed cost when the goods actually hit the market, the destination, the for the end user, for the buyer. We're looking at the purchase price, the shipping fee, customs duties, taxes, and other associated costs. So you want to make sure your COGS are still at a healthy percentage, and making sure that you have adapted your prices accordingly to ensure that you are making money, not losing money, by perhaps valuing or underpricing your products based on the market. Next slide, please. As mentioned, your export plan is going to reflect a lot of the main aspects of your startup business plan, but again, it is laser focused on those specific markets of interest, and it all starts with research. And we're going to show you some tools today that you can use, and you want to make sure that you are aligned with your management team on the prospective markets that you choose, and to really be able to give yourself some time to research and explore these prospective markets. And this is all without jumping on a plane. This is without spending a dime. This is all information that you can access at no cost from reliable federal government data resources that you can utilize to see what may be the best next step. Next slide, please. So here is the sample export plan outline. This isn't even the whole thing. There's another page. I'm just going to highlight a couple pieces on here. Export licensing, that comes up as a major question. Companies may say, oh, do I need an export license? 95% of products do not need an export license. There is a huge exception for any kind of dual use item. So if you are in the defense space, if you are, any kind of military potential use, that's going to likely put you in that 5% of products that do need a license. But beyond the license for the product itself, down to the export control compliance, making sure that you know your customer and making sure that you are conducting due diligence to ensure that the person that you are looking to sell to is not blocked from doing business with a U.S. firm. So there's different um, lists that we can point you to, resources, in order to ensure that the company that you are selling to, and not just the company itself, but of course the region, the nation, or it could be an individual, not just an entity. But as Bill mentioned, there are trade opportunities such as free trade agreements. So where the products that qualify under FTAs, looking into which products of my catalog, which ones could potentially be eligible for these preferential um, trade treatment. Basically, you'll be able to. It helps to facilitate the trade of those specific products, and then looking at the um, the yeah, sorry. Looking at the tactics and action steps, we also want to encourage companies to, set up goals for themselves because you can't accurately track progress without establishing milestones. So that's just an overall important piece to give yourself those, action steps and deadlines. Next slide, please. And then we're going to briefly go through this as well, as everyone will have access to this slide deck. Do want to highlight the importance of looking into your competitive environment in your market of interest. So trying to understand not just the local business customs, but who are the big players in your industry? Who are you going to be competing against? Are there other importers that will be selling into that market as well, and looking to see what you can find out about the competitive landscape, as you would do if you were, expanding your business to Delaware. You'd want to know what is the environment, who are the other competitors in your sector. Next slide. We are going to introduce a couple of resources for product-based businesses first, and then service-based businesses. So these 3 links, I highly recommend that you check out if you are a product-based business looking to get started or expand your export initiative. The U.S. Census Bureau, as mentioned, administers the Schedule B commodity codes, and there is a search tool that you can use to identify the commodity code that best fits your specific product. And we'll be walking through an example of that shortly. In addition, the Census Bureau Global Market Finder is a way that you can plug in your commodity code, your Schedule B code for that product to track the actual exports into specific global markets, and also additional economic data associated with that product. And then finally, the Department of Commerce has their International Trade Association, that's the ITA, has country commercial guides, which are updated regularly and completed by in-country posts that work for the U.S. government, the U.S. Department of Commerce, that are there to represent and protect the interests of U.S. companies. And they are giving you on the ground insight into market conditions, market entry, top industries. They also are oftentimes co-located with foreign agriculture service offices. So you really do get a lot of great information and great insight into how to do business in a specific market, and we'll actually look at one of those in a moment as well. Next slide. For the service-based businesses, the BEA, or the Bureau of Economic Analysis, their interactive data application is a great tool for you to look through to track the exports of services based on your sector based on your NAICS code, your North American Industry Classification System code. You're probably familiar with that number, I'm sure. And then again, we're reiterating the country commercial guides, which is a great resource for both service and product businesses. So we're going to quickly go through the BEA. So we're just going to click through these slides, but when you do go on to the website, I recommend watching this video, the Navigating iTables. It will give you a nice introduction rather than jumping right in and trying to figure it out. But if we click through these slides, these steps will take you through how to access some of the potential data tables of interest. So we kind of bring you through with these screenshots all the way to the international services, which is that second box there. And then once you select that, you have additional options, and it can be by country or by type of service or both. And we're highlighting table 2.2, which does show by type of service and by country or affiliation. So we're going to move on to our Great Falls Fabricators case study, and we selected this industry because Passaic County has over $1 billion industry in durable goods manufacturing. So we thought this would be appropriate to dive into today. It also has, quite the service industry, and I did want to also highlight that the top U.S. service markets are the UK, Ireland, and Canada, and some of the top services that are exported from the United States are financial services and licensing. So for the Schedule B, this is the web page that you will come to when you're trying to identify your commodity code for a specific good. So you have two options. You can look through the publication itself or the search engine. We recommend the search engine. It is very responsive. And we're going to go through these slides. This is the publication view so that you can see another way to review. And these are updated yearly. So you'd start by typing in your keywords, custom machine component. This could mean a million things, but we're going to click classify. We're going to go through and see what specific known characteristics are going to be identified and other types of components that we can explain to find the correct code. So from here, we our known characteristics is that this is machinery, mechanical application, and then we need to select what is the purpose. So next slide, please. So we have selected the machinery for drying, and then from there looking at a specific item within that unit, so you can see how many layers that this really goes into of detail to identify the very specific product to give you that specific data. So then we go into the type of material. So because we are looking to categorize, I'll let the cat out of the bag, we're looking to categorize steel washers. So we are going to select the ferrous metal and then go to the next slide. And that'll bring us all the way to the option of whether it is threaded or other. That is the last question that we will have to complete in order to get to the gold mine of the Schedule B code, which is that 10-digit code that you can use to track your commodity. In global trade, the Schedule B number is what the U.S. Census Bureau uses, and the first 6 digits are going to be your HS code, your harmonized system code, which is used internationally and is something that you will see, throughout the world, not just the United States. So we have our code 731819 and 4 zeros, and then we're going to take that code and we're going to plug it in to the Global Market Finder, the other resource that we had mentioned, and you can see the title says U.S. exports of threaded articles of iron or steel, or not elsewhere specifies specified, and that is in thousands of dollars. So we can see that the top markets are Mexico, Canada, so our USMCA partners, and then China is actually up there as well. Next slide, please. And here is an example of, well, we're going to go into the example on the next page of the Mexico country commercial guide, but this page shows that you can select a country commercial guide, from any region. This is the landing page for the commercial guide, and you can see that there's leading sectors for U.S. export and investment. So both exporting, and if you're looking to actually set up shop in a foreign market for foreign direct investment, there's also resources for that as well. And then just to highlight some specific data from the country commercial guide, this talks about Mexico's logistics capacity and their infrastructure. So looking at, if you're looking on the distribution side and looking at all of the different, intermodal methods of distribution for logistics for your business. And that brings us to the Q&A section of the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. We are happy to answer any and all questions. We're going to invite Giancarlo and Curly back for some closing remarks.
Give it a second to see if anybody puts questions in the chat. But while you guys do that, we just do want to mention again what a great resource the New Jersey Business Action Center is, not only on the export side, but also on the myriad ways that Bill described in the beginning of this presentation, the different facets of the organization. Especially, even to me here in the office here at the county, being able to pick up the phone and call Bill, Sophie, or one of their colleagues to ask a question to help one of our businesses. It's a great resource. And as they mentioned, it's free to you. It's free to the business community here in the state of New Jersey. So something to note. Our contact information is here on the screen. So if you do have something specific to Passaic County that we can assist you with, please reach out to Curly or myself, and we're happy to support you in your journey. I do want to just again thank Bill and Sophie because I'm not seeing any questions come in. But I do want to again thank them and the folks at the New Jersey Business Action Center for partnering with us on this webinar. This is the beginning of what we hope will be a long relationship working together. And this is the first step for, I think, many of you on your export journey. So there's more to come. I hope that you'll take advantage of reaching out, either to us here at the county or to Bill and Sophie directly. I believe their contact information is on the next slide when we advance one more. But we do hope that you'll take advantage of this resource to support your business, grow your business, and continue thriving here in Passaic County. So I'll pass it back to Bill and Sophie. Any other parting words?
Giancarlo, thank you so much. And I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So Sophie, I wanted to make a point when Sophie was talking. She referenced a fair number of federal websites, and there are many great things about those websites. A, they're free. B, in this country, they are the gold standard of information. They're just unbiased, or as unbiased as humanly possible. Now, given the current federal shutdown, if there are data series that are time related, for one, exports come out every month. And so there may be a disruption of that during the current shutdown. However, that is the exception rather than the rule. They are tremendous websites. And, Sophie made the point, I've tried to make the point that the early part of the journey that Giancarlo just references, this is basically your bootstrapping. and you're bootstrapping without a dime being spent. It's all sweat equity. These websites are available for free. There's a lot of things that can be done just to begin acclimating to the language, to the rhythms and the cadence and the paces, and the nuances of conducting business in another country. And the country is, is going to be specific to each company. I mean, there's like a handful that you really don't want to go right now. You want to avoid Russia. There's currently the United States government has sanctions against that. You want to avoid North Korea. Cuba is a bit off the table as well. Not a bit, it's all off the table. And there are some old Soviet Union satellites which are currently being banned as well. But if you can set those aside and then concentrate on those markets that are still being allowed for U.S. companies to engage, there's a lot of data out there, and there's a lot of information that can be used to build an export plan. And not only that, and Sophie said this a moment ago in her part of this, it is a document which starts and then is continually revised. And I'll use Sophie's analogy. You make a business plan and you go back to that on a regular basis. The same is with your export plan. The business's aspirations change over time, markets evolve, they grow, expand, etc. And these things can all be captured inside of your export plan. So I think, Sophie, on my side, that's about everything that I wanted to speak to. Tossing it back over to you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Giancarlo and Curly. It has been a pleasure to partner with the Passaic County Division of Economic Development on this webinar, and it's been wonderful to have our live attendees here as well. If you do have any questions, please follow up with us via email. We will be sending out a follow-up email with our contact details as well as the export assessments that were previously mentioned in the presentation. And we invite you to take, 10, 15 minutes to walk through the appropriate assessment to really try to triage which of the areas do you need to focus on. So this is going to be a tool for you to help move you forward because our goal is to help you increase your exports so we can grow additional New Jersey jobs here in the Garden State. So thank you again for joining us today and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.